Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Barely Bookish podcast. Today, we are finishing up covering 1984, and this will be the last episode on the book. Next week, we will be talking about the 1984 movie, the one that actually came out in 1984. I'm not sure if there's actually another one. I just know that we only covered the one that came out in 1984 because it seemed fitting, and it was also the only one I found. So I have a feeling there's not another one, but just in case it is the one that came out in 1984, I forgot every single actor's name, so I can't tell you who's in it. I'll tell you before next week. I think there's only one that came out in 1984. So I feel like you'll be able to find it. I believe in you all. I'm sure you guys can find it. In other exciting news, we are going to be releasing the very first episode on Patreon exclusively. And it'll come out the first week of April. I'm going to be doing it on April 2nd, that Friday. So it'll be on 1984, not 1985. No, it'll be on 1995 versus 2005 Pride and Prejudice. It's with Amanda Faye once again. So you will get to see more of her. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think you all will really, really enjoy it. And I will be releasing monthly episodes for Patreon exclusively. So if you're interested in getting more content, please consider subscribing to the $10 and above tier. There's already bloopers, all my show notes, all those kinds of things are already on Patreon, and then this will just be something a little extra, and it should be a lot of fun. Also, we have merch coming. It's coming. It's not quite here yet. It's not quite ready, but it should be announced, I'm hoping, within the week. So please make sure you follow me on Instagram and you will be the first to know about that when that happens. But that's all I've got for you guys now. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Barely Bookish podcast. We are continuing on with our read-through of 1984 by George Orwell, and we are going to be finishing up this book today. I am once again joined by Nicole.
Hey, everyone.
And we're going to get into these chapters. We're going to finish up the book, talk about the chaos that is this book and our overall thoughts and all that good stuff. So one really quick thing I just want to say is I want to throw out there are some trigger warnings for torture. Anyone that has any issues with dissociation, probably do not finish this book. Yeah, I think that's it. If there's any other trigger warnings, I'll be sure to edit that in right here. But I just want to make sure that you take care of yourself first, and you don't read or listen to these chapters, and you join us in the next book because this is bad. It gets a little bad. I don't really struggle with dissociation, but I could tell that if you do, these chapters will really get to you. And we'll talk about that more later. But yeah, what do you think?
It's twisted.
It is twisted, that's for sure.
Extremely twisted. And I remember reading this book back in high school, and the more we get into it, the more I think, how did my high school allow us to read this?
Yeah, I was thinking that the entire time I was reading these chapters. We did not have any sort of classical literature or modern classic readings in high school. So the entire time I'm reading this, I'm like, how did high schools be like, yeah, this is the good literature? Out of every book you could have picked in the entire world, why would you be like, okay, yep, this is the one. This is what kids need to read? Because this book, it says a whole lot of nothing, in my opinion. It's very dark, it's very twisted, and I guess it's an interesting idea, but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily well written because
or appropriate
for
at least high school children.
Yeah, I mean, this book,
and you're right, it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of sections and whole chapters that were just totally unnecessary.
Yeah, and rambling a lot.
Yeah, it didn't really produce anything for the main picture.
And it's just like, it did not have a single well-written female at all. Like, Julia is such a flat character, we don't know anything about her. The only character we actually know something about is Winston, and even that, he's so strange that
Mhm.
it's hard to even understand him as a character, but it's just everybody's, like, so flat, you
No,
know?
definitely, and it's crazy that there's maybe only 2 or 3 women in this entire book that are discussed.
Mhm.
Like Miss Parsons, she was discussed early on, but very briefly.
Yeah.
But Julia is like the only considered main character
Yeah.
of this book, and she's the only woman.
And she's still really
And
not
she's
talked
still
about
really, yeah, she's still
or
really not
developed.
talked about. She's just kind of there.
Yeah. And it's just like, when there's so much good literature out there, which passes, first off, passes the Bechdel test, and second off, you know, is well written. If you still want the same type of vibe where it messes with your mind, there's other books you could choose. So I don't know. I just don't really, not in love with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't put I think I'm gonna probably put a 3 out of 5 on my Goodreads rating.
No, I think I could agree with that.
Yeah, it's not the best thing, it's not the worst thing I've ever read, but, you
It's
know,
definitely interesting.
it's weird.
It's
I
interesting in a weird way.
Yeah. It gives you a lot to think about, but it's also like, "Okay,
It gives
great."
you a lot of what the fuck moments.
Yeah, I agree with that. Alright, we'll get right into it. So part 3, chapter 1. Winston is, guessing he's in the Ministry of Love, but he's not really sure where he's at. Um, he's currently in a cell with a telescreen on each wall. He's really hungry, and he went to see if there were any crumbs in his pocket, and the telescreen started yelling at him to get his hand out of his pockets. And, like, if they're gonna pat him down.
Yes, exactly. I was thinking the same thing. I was
Yeah.
just gonna say that. If you're being put into a cell, don't you check all everything?
Yeah, so, like, why would you even worry if someone's putting their hands in their pockets? Because, like, what if your hands are cold? Or, like, for some people, that's a comfort position. Like, if you're
Mhm.
wearing a hoodie, you put your hands in your pockets out of comfort, not necessarily to get something out of your pockets. So it was weird to me that he got yelled at for putting his hands in his pockets when, there's nothing gonna be in there. Everyone knows there's nothing in there unless they didn't do a pat down.
Yeah, which is weird.
Yeah, I don't
Because
know.
at that point, why are you bothering throwing people in a cell without patting them down?
Yeah. Ugh, it's weird.
It's weird.
Plus, it's like, it doesn't seem like they have weaponry at all.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, what is he gonna grab? So he's talking about how the regular prisoners go to labor camps and how there's favoritism, um, something called racketing, and then he says there is homosexuality and prostitution and alcohol. So I just need a brief pause. First of all, why was homosexuality and prostitution wrapped together? Second of all, you're telling me that only homosexuals are in, like, the labor camps? Like, it was a weird grouping of random things that they threw together,
Mhm.
like, I don't know, it was just weird to me. I was like, okay, like, why?
Yeah.
And also, isn't there alcohol outside of the forced labor camps? Like, the normal people, like the proles, drink alcohol.
Yeah.
So I was like, why is that brought up?
I
There's
mean, that's
also,
basically all Winston drank in normal days is coffee and gin.
yeah. So I'm like, okay, so you're saying it's basically exactly the same way as the normal world that you're in, because there's favoritism in your normal world. There is hopefully homosexuality in your normal world, like, I would assume. And we already know that we've established that there's prostitution and alcohol in the normal world. And, like, here's the thing, you're not allowed to actually get married for love. So I don't know. I don't know. So while he's in the holding cell, he's literally not worried about Julia or what's happening to her, and he's still trying to pretend like he loves her. But that's another thing, I guess. They bring another prisoner into the cell, and it's a poet named Ampleforth, which they acted like we had heard of this person before, but I don't remember him being talked about at all.
I don't remember it either.
Yeah, I was like,
Unless it was very like again, there's so many things being thrown at you in this book, so many unimportant things.
mhm.
It's almost like make see at this point it makes me want to go back and see if he was mentioned.
Yeah, because I
But
don't
it's
remember him
just
being mentioned at all.
I don't remember him being mentioned at all.
Yeah, but they were like, "Oh, Ampleforth, the poet," and I'm like, first of all, who names their like Ampleforth is not a name for the 50s. Ampleforth is a medieval warrior, and you cannot convince me otherwise. So I don't know. That was weird in and of itself. So Ampleforth is in jail for allowing God to remain at the end of a poem because they've eliminated religion. And I'm just like, wow, they'll literally throw anybody in jail. But we already knew that. But Ampleforth was escorted out of the room Ampleforth was escorted to room 101 by the guards, and Winston remains in the cell by himself. Which, now that we know what room 101 is, what were they going to question him about? They already know that he talked about God because he couldn't find another rhyme. So I don't know. So Parsons is also here now, and he's the guy with the kids that are spies. So Parsons just said, "Down with Big Brother" in his sleep. My question is because his kid reported it. I wonder if he didn't actually say that. If the kid just made it up to turn
I
someone
know
in.
it's so weird. And
Yeah.
by the way, I just did a search,
Mhm.
and Ampleforth was mentioned 15% of the way into the book.
I don't remember it. I really don't. Was it just like mentioned in passing?
And a few cubicles away, a mild, ineffectual, dreamy creature named Ampleforth, with very hairy ears and a surprising talent for juggling with rhymes and meters.
Oh, of course I wouldn't remember him. He was just a
He
random
was
man.
just a random man in a cubicle.
Interesting. They're really just throwing out all the characters that they previously mentioned here.
Yep, but there you go. There's your Ampleforth. I was curious. I was
But I
curious.
really don't think Parsons mentioned anything about being down with Big Brother. Like, I have some serious doubts. I think his kid just turned him in
Yeah.
for funsies.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Parsons says that his daughter was the one who turned him into the party. Like, listened at the keyhole, which is that even a thing? Because, like, you can't hear through a keyhole.
I don't know. How big are these keyholes back then?
Yeah, also, like, was he screaming down with the Big Brother? Because usually when you're sleep talking, you, like, mumble it.
Mhm.
I think this entire thing's made up. Because otherwise the telescreen would have caught it.
I think his daughter just didn't want him around anymore.
I'm guessing that too. So Parsons went to pee, and Winston covered his eyes, and then the telescreen yelled at him not to cover his eyes. For what?
Why?
Literally, like, for what? Because it's not like, having your eyes covered is going to actually do anything
Mhm.
to endanger yourself or anyone around you. I really don't understand. And the toilet can't flush, so now the cell just smells like pee. Like, that was an unnecessary thing to happen, but let it happen, I guess. So Parsons was brought out, and more prisoners came and went in the cells. One of the men in the cells is dying of starvation as well, because that's something Big Brother likes to do for who knows what reason. And one man tried to give the starving man a piece of bread, and the telescreen screamed at him. And while I'm talking about this, like, we know that the entire time Winston is there, he's alone. Like, there's no mention of him except for this moment when he's with people, being with people again. So
Mhm.
why did they put the starving man back in this holding cell with everyone? Like, that
Yeah.
seems strange to me. But a guard then comes in and decks the guy who tried to be nice in the mouth and he's like bleeding out of his mouth. And then the starving man was brought out and is being sent to room 101, which at that point I was trying to gather was the interrogation room.
Mhm.
And that entire situation I am just confused by, because I don't know why they'd bring him in there. I don't know why they, like, I know why they decked the guy who was trying to be nice, but I still am just like not in love with it, to be honest. So then Winston's alone again. This time they open the door and O'Brien comes in. And I think they break his arm as soon as O'Brien walks in. I think that's what happened. Like, they said something about him being disabled and now his arm hurts. And I was like, did they just break your arm or what?
It's weird. It's like it might fall anywhere on the
Yeah.
crown, on the tip of the ear, on the upper arm, on the elbow. The elbow. He had slumped to his knees, almost paralyzed.
So I'm guessing they broke his arm.
They whacked him good.
Yeah. Or just severely injured it, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, I think you're right. They severely injured him in some way.
Yeah. Well, anyways, so we're going to chapter 2. So chapter 2 starts, and it looks like O'Brien actually works for the inner party still. And this is like the point where I'm starting to wonder if the Brotherhood was invented by the inner party.
Mhm.
Because, like, we'll get to it in a little bit, but I don't know, some details start falling into place, and I'm like, ooh, is that what's actually happening here? So Winston is getting the first round of routine interrogations. He's being like absolutely beaten to a pulp, and in his own terms, destroyed. He's actually getting food now, which is a plus because he had been sitting there hungry for like 36 hours, he's guessing, when everyone was in the cells with him. He was just like not being fed. So he finally gets food, which is pretty cool. So they start questioning him and trying to trip him up and catch him in lies.
Mhm.
And oof, like they just, when they're questioning him, this is the part where they kind of start to like, if you have issues with dissociation, like this is the part that it starts to get really bad. But yeah.
Very twisty.
Yeah. Winston is essentially confessing to every known crime to man and trying to get out of the beatings. And he is now going to go to room 101. So Winston thinks O'Brien is going to do something to him. And O'Brien says that Winston has a defective memory, that he's remembering things that never even happened. So O'Brien says that it's a hallucination and the party is law, essentially. Like they start asking him if they were ever at war with somebody besides, I think it's Eurasia or East Asia. East Asia. And he goes, well, we've been at war with East Asia for 4 years. And then before that, we were at war with East Eurasia for 8 years. And, it goes, no, we've always been at war with East Asia. So they're trying to rewrite him to believe everything the party says. Mm-hmm. And yeah, O'Brien says that the party controls all records and all memories. In turn, they control the past. Which this thought terrifies me to my core. Because just the idea that once you start controlling what's written in history textbooks, that you control all of history. Like I talked about this a little bit in my Fahrenheit 451 recording, I believe, but there was that what was it? A couple years ago, not there was this state that was trying to get rid of talking about like slavery in history books. Mm-hmm. And it's like thinking about that, there could be an entire generation that doesn't know that existed.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying because then you really do control history. You control the narrative of the world just by not teaching kids about it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, was it, I think it was Thomas Jefferson where he raped a bunch of his slaves. So that a lot of people are descended from him. I think it's Thomas Jefferson. I'll have to double check that. But we don't get to learn that in school.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn that as an adult outside of school and learn about all the terrible things the founding fathers did and like how Columbus spread plague essentially when he colonized because it made all of the native people sick. It's wild that because we aren't taught that in school, we have to find it out ourselves. But like that could be just deleted and we would never know like the suffering of people before us. It's just this part makes me think about all the things that like we very easily could not know right now because they just were never told or spoken to except for the people alive in that generation.
It's definitely, like you said, a terrifying concept to think about.
Absolutely. So O'Brien mentions Woodson's diary to him, so he's apparently found that now because he didn't show the diary to O'Brien when he went to become a member of the Brotherhood, did he? I don't think so.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't think he did. But he starts talking about the diary and says like how he talked about that 2 + 2 = 4, and that's the freedom to think that. And it's really weird because Winston starts realizing that they could have read it the entire time because they're smart enough to put the dust fleck back on. And it's just crazy to me that he probably was being watched the entire time. Like, it's not just this last thing that tipped him over the edge of him becoming, because there's a reason that O'Brien reached out to him to become, quote, a member of the Brotherhood, because he thought he already was there. And it's like, why would the telescreen not be able to see that one spot in his apartment? It would, like, the whole point of the telescreens is being able to see everything. So, yeah, the more we got into these parts, the more I kind of thought about the fact that they probably were watching him the entire time, and it was just crazy to think about.
Yeah, I think you're accurate in that. I think he's been basically watched the entire time.
Yeah, me too.
That's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah. So O'Brien's trying to convince him to say what the party wants people to think by shocking him with like electrocution. So Winston thinks that O'Brien must be trapped as well and that he's also a prisoner. But to be honest, Winston's going crazy right now.
just a little.
Just a little bit crazy.
Just a little bit crazy.
Yeah. He's just like, at this point, he's starting to like hallucinate for real. And he just can't distinguish between like the lines of reality. And it's not a good look for our friend Winston.
Yeah.
O'Brien says that they brought Winston to the Ministry of Love to cure him and to make him sane, quote unquote. O'Brien says that the party has made it so that they are no longer, every time I try and say this word, I say it wrong. Martyrs. Martyrs. Every time I really have to think about it because it's spelled so strangely. But O'Brien says that the party has made it so that they're no longer martyrs because they erase people from history. It's like, just talking about it, like, it's such a dictatorship.
Yeah, no.
It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. Winston is wondering what all the torture is for if they're just intending to kill him, but O'Brien says that the party is not content with negative obedience. They want you to believe them with your heart and soul. They attached 2 nodes to the side of Winston's head, and now they're doing some new kind of torture, which I don't even really know what it was, but it sounded like they were like brainwashing him. But I was like, it was starting to verge on the level of sci-fi because they were just like, they went from electrocution to now brainwashing, which I was just like, what are we doing? What's happening now?
What is going on?
Basically, I was like, I am confusion.
Confusion?
O'Brien says that Winston can ask him any question he would like, so Winston asks what happened to Julia. O'Brien says that she betrayed Winston immediately and has had a perfect conversion.
Ha! Interesting.
Yeah. So Winston asks if Big Brother exists, which we don't really get an answer. He says that like Big Brother exists. Yes, it exists, obviously exists, but he doesn't say that it's a person, and then he says that Winston doesn't exist. So I don't know. Then he asks if the Brotherhood exists, to which O'Brien says that he will never know. Winston then asks what's in room 101, which O'Brien says that he already knows what's in room 101. It's so chaotic. It is so chaotic.
No, it definitely is chaotic.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
It's definitely a lot.
So, chapter 3, Winston has entered into the second state of conversion, which is understanding. And like when they said the second stage of conversion, my brain just was like, I have always imagined conversion therapy for when like gay teens get sent to conversion therapy. I always imagined it as torture. And like I know that it's not. I know it's terrible. I absolutely know that it's terrible. But it's like this is what I imagine conversion therapy to be. Personally. Yeah. So it's like reading this, I was like So Winston has entered into the second stage of conversion, which is understanding. O'Brien says that he helped write Goldstein's book, which leads me to believe that the Brotherhood was created by the party. Like, that is the point where I was like, okay, like, I know it's a possibility that maybe they just made the book for Goldstein to give to people who are possibly going to betray the party. But I really don't know as like a figment if the Brotherhood is fake.
Yeah.
Like I'm really not sure. So I don't know. So O'Brien says that the party is forever. There's no way for it to be overthrown, and that's where he must begin his thoughts. It's so bad. It's so bad. It just makes me uncomfy. O'Brien says that the party seeks power for its own sake and they're not interested in the good of others. Which, if that doesn't sound like a dictatorship, I don't know what will. Then O'Brien literally admits that the German Nazis and the Russian communists come close to the party, but they didn't have, quote, the courage, unquote, to recognize their own motives. Which I guess we're supposed to be in taking that the motives of the party are power, but it's still not very clear what the motives of the party are, because you wanted power, enslaving your entire populace to believe that your history is the true history and constantly changing it. I still don't understand the motivation for that. Yeah. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You control all these people, but for what? Like, what's your end goal? And it's never stated or clear, like, as to what their goal or why they did this. I don't get it.
I don't think they have a goal.
I don't either, but he's like, well, they didn't understand what motivates them. What motivates you? You didn't explain that at all. So I don't know. It seems like there should have possibly been like a little novella to accompany this to explain things to me, but there wasn't, and now I'm sad. So O'Brien seems to keep reading Winston's mind, which was really, really weird. Like every time Winston had a thought, O'Brien was like, I know you're thinking this right now. And I'm like, buddy, how? Like, how? You did not explain at all how you seem to be able to read everyone's minds. Like this, at this point, they were like going into the line of being more sci-fi-esque than just fiction. And I was starting to get a little uncomfy because I was like, you need to draw the line. Is this sci-fi? Is this just fiction?
What is it?
Yeah. because it's like he's basically reading Winston's mind for what? I don't know. And you can like strike up the argument that maybe it was like he's tortured so many people that he knows kind of what people are thinking. But even so, it was down to like the exact thought he was having. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, then O'Brien says that he could levitate off the floor, but the party does not wish it. So therefore, he will not. Because the party completely controls reality.
Wait.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. No. What? Like there's so many things you can speak into existence. But I guess that he's going off of the fact that they would write that he levitated off the floor and say that he levitated off the floor and everyone would believe it, but it didn't actually happen. But it's like him trying to cause our like Winston to completely disassociate here is starting to get a little under my skin. Like I was getting very uncomfortable at this point in the book. Because it's just like he's speaking into existence all these contradictions and saying that they are fact. And it gets to this point where it's like, what is reality? What is fact? Because, you know, for us, whatever we see is real. But then, obviously you can get to this point where it's like, well, are you sure that that's real? How do you prove that it's real? And you're like, well, I'm seeing it, so it is real. But it's your sight is not a basis for evaluation of reality. And that made me very uncomfortable because it made me think like, how could I prove that something's real to something who cannot physically see it, hear it, taste it, smell it, use any of their senses to understand that it was physically there?
Yeah.
That made me uncomfy. I did not like it at all.
No, I get that.
Yeah, I could not think of anything to prove that something is grounded in reality.
Yeah, no, I can get that.
O'Brien says that humans always ruled the world, and the 19th century archaeologists made up mammoths because he says to Winston, he's like, have you ever seen a mammoth? And Winston's like, no, not physically. And he goes, because they're made up. And I'm like, what? I'm sorry. Oh, what? And like, there's this whole thing with Photoshop where people say that a lot of images are doctored and how, with supermodels and things like that's not what they actually look like because a lot of their images on social media are photoshopped. So it's like I felt like that conversation was this conversation. You know what I mean? Whereas like what you can't trust something unless you physically see it yourself. And I was like, don't put me here. I don't want to be here. I'm uncomfortable and I do not like the energy we created in the studio today. So O'Brien is really hammering in the idea of your mind controlling the world around you. And he says that in the future, there will be no husbands or wives. Well, he says there will be no wives, but I added in the husband part because of quality. And no friends, and children will be taken from their mothers at birth, and procreation will be an annual formality like food stamps. Or ration stamps. Ration.
Wait, so they're just going to ration off?
Yes. No, exactly what you're thinking. I think they're going to do like IVF yearly for women, which if that's not the most Handmaid's Tale, having never read the Handmaid's Tale, quick little. From what I understand of the Handmaid's Tale, isn't that not the plot?
Have you not seen the series?
I've not seen the series. I've not read the book.
Oh my gosh.
Is that the plot? Have you seen the series?
Oh, I keep up with that series.
Okay. Is that the plot? That's my understanding of the plot.
It's basically no, I wouldn't say that it's a certain time of the year. It's just every month.
A what?
It's like every month.
How do you have a baby every month?
Not every month, but in the in the Handmaid's Tale, from what I gather from the series, every month during a certain time, the men will screw the handmaid with their wife there.
Why?
Basically, like holding. It's very weird. Yeah. So, anywho, and then if they get pregnant, then the handmaid's pregnant and things cease. But every month until the handmaid is pregnant, at a certain time,
For
they
everyone that can't get, obviously doesn't have the visuals, I'm making a face of disgust right now. Just
yeah. So I'm trying to like give you enough detail without giving it away because now you really need to read the book or at
yeah.
least watch the series.
Ugh,
Um,
jeez.
but yeah, but I mean, it's not like this where what he's proposing, because what he's proposing is literally once a year you basically get injected with a freaking sperm. You know,
Well, he doesn't say that either. He does not say IVF. I'm hoping IVF, but
but I
it
mean,
very well could
if you're
be.
taking away wives, you
Yeah.
know, and you're saying you're basically presenting a time of procreation.
Mhm.
It's basically, it basically is.
I'm like, is it?
Whether it's the man doing it or a
Yeah.
doctor doing it, it basically is.
Yeah.
Because you're doing it at a
Oh,
certain time. And I guess you can say that's kind of like The Handmaid, except what 1984 is saying it's almost like once
yeah.
once yearly.
Yeah.
Where in the other, where The Handmaid's Tale, it's more like once monthly, and if it happens, it happens.
Ooh. Winston says that somehow the party will be defeated, and O'Brien is like, that's never gonna happen. The party is forever. Um, yeah, spewing the same nonsense. But nothing is forever. If the history has taught us anything, civilization civilizations crumble, new ones are built. Like with human beings, things are constantly changing. That's kind of the good part about us being
Hmm.
humans. So I don't know. O'Brien says that tells Winston to get naked and look in the mirror. So at this point, Winston is incredibly thin. He does not recognize himself at all.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, they've been like starving him.
You starve him and you're torturing him. Of course,
Yeah,
he's gonna look different.
his hair is falling out in clumps. His like bicep. O'Brien's around able to reach around with his fingers and have them meet on each end, and his teeth are falling out. He's only got 11 teeth left.
Oh,
Yeah. So O'Brien tells Winston that he has lost 25 kilograms of of weight since they've had him, and we still don't know how long they've had him. I think we're assuming like a couple months at this point.
that's what I'm assuming. It has to be if you lose that much.
Yeah, like I know starvation kicks in pretty quickly. I feel like for him to still be alive and having lost that much weight,
They
they had
have to be nourishing him somehow,
yeah,
or
they
else
had,
he'd be dead, dead.
yeah, they had to give him at least like some sort of like IV nutrients or something.
Hmm.
O'Brien says to get a good look in the mirror because he is the last man. Everybody is party, no one is man. And now Winston is crying in a heap on a stool. And Winston says that he hasn't betrayed Julia yet because he hasn't stopped loving her. And I'm like, buddy, you didn't even love her. You did not even love her. Like he keeps like saying, he's like, oh, I love Julia so much. Like you have no real connection, like
Hmm. When
emotional.
he first got locked up, he was questioning whether he loved her.
Well, he said that he like knows he loves her, but he doesn't think about her or worry about her. I'm like, then that's not love,
It's not
buddy.
love. It's
He's
how would you
physically
classify
attracted
it?
to her and he confuses that with love continuously.
What would you classify that as? Lust?
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably because that's the only thing that makes sense. He doesn't have any actual care or emotional
He's
like
just lustful for her.
yeah, exactly. It's terrible. All right, so chapter 4. They finally bathe Winston and gave him new clothes, and they also pull out the rest of his teeth and give him dentures. Which, if they're not going to brush his teeth, like if he doesn't get any way to clean or brush his teeth, why even give him the dentures? I do not understand. There's no point. Like, who's he trying to impress while he's in prison?
Unless, because I mean, if they give him dentures, maybe they're preparing to set him free.
I mean, I guess that could make
If
sense.
that's the case, they're getting ready to set him free, so they're preparing him, or maybe he's passed the
Test,
the
maybe.
test,
Yeah,
the torture, passed the torture, and able to be kind of moved into civilization.
yeah, maybe. It's just to me, it didn't make a lot of sense for him to for them to pull off the rest of his teeth and then give him dentures when they're the entire reason that his teeth rotted out of his head.
Well, at least with dentures, they won't rot anymore.
I guess
I guess that's maybe why they can
rinse
do
off
whatever
the
they
dentures.
need
I
to
don't
do,
know.
I guess.
So Winston's gained weight and they're feeding him, and he's actually exercising now in his little cell. And Winston says that he cannot fight against the party anymore. And he's like sitting there retraining his brain to believe everything the party says. So he hallucinates Julia and then yells for her out loud in his cell with the telescreens right there. And he completely breaks his cover. And they take Winston to room 101 so that he will learn to love Big Brother. So chapter 5. In room 101, it's supposed to be the worst thing in the world, which varies from person to person, which I don't even know how they figure out what the worst thing in the world is for each individual person.
Hmm. Well, I mean, if they're all being watched,
That's true, I
I
guess.
guess you kind of learn
What their
people's
fears
fears.
are.
Like if somebody jumps from a spider being in the corner of their home,
Yeah. But,
you know that person's afraid of spiders.
yeah. And then apparently the worst thing in the world to Winston is rats, which I don't know if he's
Well,
actually afraid of them or.
he freaked out in when he was in the secret bedroom.
Mm,
Remember there was a rat and he freaked out and Julia was just like, "It's just a rat."
yeah. Oh,
Yes. You remember that?
I kind of do now that you mention it. Yeah.
Yeah, like he freaked out over the rat and she was just like, "It's just a rat," you know.
Yeah. And they were watching the secret bedroom, so
Yes. So they did watch and they were watching the secret bedroom. So there you
there you go.
there you go.
So the rat is apparently going to eat Winston's face. And they have this whole contraption with 2 cages and then a mask to go around his face. And they are about to release it, and Winston tells them to do it to Julia instead of him.
Damn.
Yeah. And that's the moment he betrays Julia. And then the cage door of the rats click close and does not open as soon as he tells them to do it to Julia instead. And I'm like, oof, 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 oof. So, chapter 6, Winston is now sitting in a restaurant. He has been newly released, and he apparently goes to this restaurant called the Chestnut Tree every day for some reason. And no one is with him. They always reserve a table for him, and they gave him a higher paying job now. Julia and Winston have seen each other but have no interest in a continued relationship because they've been completely brainwashed. And then Julia now looks at him with contempt and dislike. Which, poor Julia. She is like 20 years old and now has had her entire life absolutely wrecked.
She went from totally loving him
Mm-hmm.
to totally hating him.
Absolutely. So no one on the telescreen talks to him. Like, I do not understand this whole dynamic of them releasing people, because it's like now they're not even contributing members of society,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody else that was released in like, because all the other people that were released from these prisons are the people he works with, and they just don't really do anything at all. And like their life isn't being controlled or watched. They're just like mindless zombies
Mm-hmm.
existing in the society. So I don't even understand what the point is.
They've been converted.
Yeah. Winston has a flashback to childhood where he is like shaking a dice box, and then he pushes it out of his mind because it's, quote, a false memory, unquote. And the party has a victory against East Asia, which everyone is very excited about. And then the book ends with Winston saying he loves Big Brother.
But did you know 2 + 2 = 5?
I know. I'm so mad. I'm so mad because it's like we go through this entire book thinking that Winston's going to do something great, rebel. And like, for what? The book ends and he is just like straight chilling for no reason and like loving Big Brother again.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely a twist. Like, as you're reading, you think something big is gonna happen, down with Big Brother, and it turns out to be, oh hail Big Brother.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand. What was the point of this book? Because it basically just told us that, like, if you're in a dictatorship, just enjoy life, I guess, because there's no reason to rebel.
Yeah, you're just stuck.
Yeah, so it's like, I'm not saying we always need a happy ending, but like having him actually contribute to the world or something would have been great because he did not contribute to the world at all.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I definitely agree.
Yeah. So overall impressions, what do you think?
I don't know how my high school got away with letting us read this.
Yeah.
If I didn't think it was dark and twisty then, I was a very twisted child. Because it is pretty dark and twisty.
I talked to someone else about this book, and they said that their high school also had them read it, but that they didn't discuss any sort of feminism along with it. And I think that when I read books like this, I end up ultimately reading them from such a modern lens, no matter what, that, I can't help but kind of put my feminist opinions out onto this book. But it's weird to me that they don't have those types of discussions while reading this book, because I feel like this book brings up a lot to discuss, and especially it leaves a lot to be desired.
No, I
And
definitely agree. Um, but maybe they just think that it's too much for them.
yeah, but I feel like you can't read this book without having real discussions with your students. And if you're not prepared for that, maybe don't discuss this book, because this is not a happy-go-lucky kind of story. And if that's what you're expecting, or if you want something that's not going to bring up a lot of hard conversations, read, I don't know, something else. Like, there's a reason people read Romeo and Juliet. Even though it's a tragedy, it doesn't bring up a lot of hard discussions. This does. It brings up a lot of difficult topics. And that's something that as a teacher you should be prepared to discuss with your students.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And I don't remember thoroughly discussing this book with in depth like that. It was more of like she had us fill out things on paper, and then once we finished the book, then we played the game.
The game?
Yes.
Oh yeah, you had to bring this up. Did you ever learn more about it? I forgot we talked about this.
I didn't, but as I read through the book, I kind of like remembered how we kind of played it. So she gave us all like note cards and with pins on them, and we had to pin them to our shirts upside down. And there were thought police. Somebody was Big Brother, which it ended up being her, and then there were the thought criminals. So, basically, thought criminals, everybody wore these on here, and then if you were a thought police, you were allowed to go up to you were allowed to go to another person, and if you basically had to like watch people. Almost, you had to watch your classmates to see what they were doing, to see who they were talking to, so you would start out, and if you asked somebody to basically you'd go up to them and say, "You're a thought criminal, and let me see your card." So if they showed their card and they were a thought criminal, then they would steal their card, and that person would be taken to the Ministry of Love.
Mm.
Okay, if you are a thought criminal talking with a thought criminal, you were safe. And then basically at the end of like the 2 weeks, whoever had like the most thought criminals as a thought police
Mhm.
basically won. Now, if you were a thought police with asking another thought police, I think you were safe. But it was a very weird, kind of weird
Sounds kind of
game.
cool.
No, it was definitely cool. And I think there was a way where if you got caught by Big Brother, even if you were a thought criminal or a thought police, you could also lose your card.
Mm.
But it was kind of a way of us like really paying attention and focusing on our classmates, who they were talking to, what they were doing,
Yeah.
It was very interesting, and it was not only just our period,
Mhm.
because you had the 7 periods in a day in high school.
Yeah.
It was not just ours, it was all the periods who read the book.
Mhm.
So there were also people playing who were not actually in your class, but part of her
So you
teaching.
could steal their cards?
So you could steal their cards.
Mm.
Yes. So it was very interesting to how it was orchestrated, and pretty cool.
That's cool, but it's like a weird take on the story. You know what I mean?
It is a
Like,
weird take on the story.
I don't know. It's kind of weird to me to think like, is that the thing you get out, like you gathered out of it? Like that, like there's a lot in this book that we could talk about, you know? And it's like, it's cool that there was an activity, but to me, it's like, that's not really the point of this story. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So it's
No,
kind
I think it was also her trying to take something dark and twisty and something very weird,
of, mhm,
and maybe
make light of it
make
a
light
little
of
bit.
it.
I can get that.
It,
I
it was
definitely
just
get
it was very interesting.
Yeah, weird. I don't know. This book just was so weird. It's so weird.
No, I agree.
And
Definitely
like
agree.
I definitely don't think it should be a banned book by any means, but it's just weird that this is commonplace for people to read in high school
Mhm.
to me. Like I never read it, obviously, but like it's weird to me that this is something that's a staple.
Mhm.
And like I've kind of heard the same thing because I haven't read it To Kill a Mockingbird. I know absolutely nothing about it, so no spoilers. But it's weird. I've heard that that's a similar vibe that people get. It's that it's strange that that's a high school allowed book.
Yeah. No, it was definitely a strange high school allowed book,
Yeah.
at least for 1984.
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts about 1984 before we wrap up this episode?
If you can handle it, read it.
Yeah. If you have any sort of issues with rape, torture, dissociation, any of that, probably don't read it. But
Yeah.
anybody else that wants to read it,
Yeah, it's an interesting book if you can handle the boring moments too.
yeah, that too. It's like I heard that about Tolkien's writing, where it's like if you just cut out him describing trees for 20 pages, it's a good book.
This tree is green.
Yeah, literally.
This tree has rough bark.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for joining me on this episode. Where can all the people of the internet find you?
I can be found at Scarlet Rose FL. That is Scarlet with 2 T's, and that is on Twitch, Instagram, Facebook, Discord. I might be missing one, but just Twitter. There we go.
There we go.
There
We'll
we
get
go.
there. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I will catch you all in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all so much for joining me on this episode of the Barely Bookish podcast. As I kind of mentioned in the intro, we will be having those Patreon exclusive episodes. They'll come out every month. I'm planning on doing it about like the first Friday of every month is kind of the goal right now, but we'll see how that changes. Maybe it'll just be like the first week of the month. I don't know. It's a work in progress. I'd also like to hear what you guys think. What day works best for you? If you want them to come out on the Wednesdays like the episodes do, it's kind of up to you guys. It's the Patreon. My hope for it is that it's kind of just a community for anyone who wants to hang out and chat and get some of that exclusive content. But also, I want everyone to have a lot of say in the Patreon and let me know what you guys want to see more. Yeah. So it's kind of up to whatever everybody wants to do. And like right now, I'll just plan on doing the first one that Friday. And then if that works out for everyone, we'll keep doing that. Otherwise, we can shift it and change it up. Doesn't really matter because I record really far in advance. So any day kind of works. Anyways, you guys don't need to know that. It's fine. All fun things. So in other news, we also are doing Lore by Alexandra Bracken. I don't know. Sorry. We're doing Lore for the Verily Book Club. So if you want to join us for that, the first reading is going to be due on Sunday. So we talk on Sunday, but if you don't have enough time, you can also join us for the second reading. And yeah, it's kind of open. It's a lot of fun. There's some really great people in there, and you'll probably make a lot of friends. And yeah, I think you guys will like it. We also are doing streams on Twitch still. They're a lot of fun. They're a good time if you like Legend of Zelda, if you like Stardew Valley. Still don't know why everyone wants to marry Shane. Shane kind of seems mean, and I don't know why. Like, I keep trying to give him like candies and like food and things that I hold near and dear to my heart to make him be nice to me, and it hasn't worked yet, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, those are options. Come hang out on Twitch. It's at Barely Bookish, as everything else is. But that's all I've got. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Thank you for listening to these episodes. If you really like the episodes, please consider leaving a review and sharing them with your friends. It's really helpful, and I would really appreciate it a lot. As always, our logo was designed by my little sister Sarah. Our theme song is by Raphael Crux on freepd.com. And I will catch you all in the next one for the 1984 movie. Bye!